Hello, welcome to Town Talks Card Fight. So I'm just going to do a little bit of meta discussion, just a little update on what I think my local meta is at the moment and how it's being influenced by the new expansion packs. Um, Alright, currently the big strong decks would be the Chaos Breaker as standard in almost all regions. Eradicator, that is still a potent deck. The Dragonite Descendant Gauntlet Buster, that's still doing very well at my locals at the moment. And also the grade 4 New Velvet Egg deck, that is doing incredibly well. I found ways to shut it down. My decks are very awkward, but they do seem to be working. Raging Form, standard deck, that is a strong deck that's going to stick there for quite a while, pretty much until Legion comes out. And there's a few cool things which I've seen recently. I saw someone managed to top my local with the Ancient Dragon Tachikaze deck the other day. Played it very well. Something I didn't realise from not really playing Tachikaze before. You can activate their effects when they get put into the drop zone, when they get retired by your opponent's effects. So, say you retire the baby Rex, you can counterblast one to superior call the Tyranno Legend from the deck if it's been retired by an opponent's effect, because it's still moving from the rearguard circle to the drop zone. It's an auto effect that happens when your card gets put into the drop zone. So people that try and retire, say, the Iguanodon, so things like that, their effects still activate, so you can bring them back. So you're really just wasting, you're forcing the opponent to waste counterblasts in retiring their cards, but they still get the cards back, so there's not much real advantage from it, apart from your burning counterblast so they can't use it again later. You're restricting their options, but you're also not really gaining much from your turn apart from restricting their later option. So it's like doing so is a late game option, is an option to try and shorten the game and reduce their late game potential. It was something something I never actually really thought about when I read the abilities before, because it says when this card is moved from the rearguard zone to the drop zone. So when this card is, it counts as a retire. Any sort of retire, which is moving card from the rearguard to the drop zone, would activate it to its effect. So you do that, you may pay the cost. Most people ignore this. This guy, someone called him up on it on the first round, and he said, no, the card's moving from the rearguard zone to the drop zone, therefore the ability is an automatic effect which can be activated, and you could pay the cost. Called the judge over, the judge explained, and yes, it's a very legitimate thing to do. I thought it was really cool. This guy, he managed to beat me in the final round, but he just beat me. That was because I was running my Chain Blast Dragon deck rather than my more competitive Garmor deck. Yes, I had competitive Garmor deck. That's my deck. This is my competitive one. But I was running my Chain Blast Dragon deck. I was doing very well. Up until the point where I retired his baby Rex, because he hadn't self-retired yet, because he hadn't been able to, and he was really suffering on field, so he had two iguanas and baby Rex out, along with the Spino Drive, which is his Vanguard. That's the field he had. I retired his 3 rearguards, and then I was like, oh god, I've just given him another rearguard attacker. She then superior called them with having the iguanas in 2 back rows with a Tyranno Legend up front, and I got completely the fact that happened then gave him an attacker which he would actually be able to hit me with, and I didn't really manage to draw much defensive cards as I was playing my Chain Blast Dragon deck, very aggressive. I had too many grade 3s. Something I've got to balance out in it, so maybe drop a Chain Blast or drop a Waterfall, something like that. But it was very, very, I got out pressured from me making that mistake in retiring his units, giving him the ability to call them back and then gain a second attacker. I lost the game from that one mistake which I made. In the second game, he just outplayed me. He had more field consistency. He just outplayed my deck. So I got 2-0'd in the finals, but that was legitimately, I lost the first game from that mistake. It's one of those things where if you don't know the cards inside out, you're going to get full on rolled over if by an ability which you don't 100% grasp, because it's something which you've got to pay attention to. There are some cards like mostly the Chaos Breaker Palladium combo, where you activate the Palladium effect when a card is unlocked to relock it. Then you also activate the Chaos Breaker effect, which, because it was unlocked, you then get to draw a card, and because it's been relocked, you can't retire it, so you just get the free card for Soul Blessing 1, which was the Palladium which you just put in there. So it's a cost of a counterblast 1 to draw a card, with them still keeping a card locked. It's things like that, little nuances which people don't pay attention to. Like, here's something for when it comes out. Liberator, Liberator of the Monarch Liberator Alfred. I think it's named something like that. I can't remember the name of it right now. But its ability, you look at the top 5 cards and call them to rearguard. You choose the order you call them to, so you can call the cards which gain power from having more Liberators called first. So you call. And then you've also got the cards which unflip damage when Blaster Blade, the Liberator, is played. So you call that one. Then you call the Blaster Blade. And you can potentially unflip all your damage which you just spent on doing the thing, activate it again, unflip, and you can just keep on doing it until you've, well, it's a nigh on endless ability. And because of the way different cards work, they have these little nuances, like I said, little niche abilities which people don't really pay attention to. Like, I'll run a little example for you. With my Garmor deck, the superior calling effect, which the entire deck has, people would class as a minus, but it's actually just a straight 0. Just a straight 0, it's as if you're doing a normal call. People don't pay attention to the fact that I'm increasing the trigger density in my deck by doing the calls from my deck, the superior calls, which are targeting cards, and then I am getting a high chance of drawing more crits and triggers and stuff when I'm attacking. Which means I know if I all in on an attack with my Galahad, if I'm stuck with Galahad and I go for an all in with my Galahad and I pay to counterblast, I will know that I can get the crits, or I know I will get the triggers because I keep counts of the trigger density in my deck. So the probability that I will draw a trigger compared to the cards I actually have. A lot of people don't pay attention to these little details. That's what defines the really good players from really bad, from the not so good players. You can have a great player, but he won't be a brilliant player because he doesn't keep track. Like a good OTT player, yeah, so Oracle Think Tank, they keep track of the entire bottom of the deck. Think Misaki from the anime. She keeps track of of her own deck and counts the cards which her opponents use, so she tries to keep track of all the cards being used. And if you can try and keep up with the cards being used, you gain a lot more advantage from just having a strong deck. Because you can give someone a normal trial deck, like just give them a normal, say, Season 1 trial deck, and they will destroy someone using a Raging Form deck if they are generally just better at the game. If they are better at keeping track of what's going on and better at understanding when to guard and how to use different cards, they could destroy someone using one of the professional decks, like one of the top end competitive decks at the moment. Well, I guess my discussion now moved from the meta discussion, which I was going to actually have, to how the game, how different little tricks can be used. I will say that there are quite a lot of cards which are very underrated. Like, I have an Arakami deck, not my Dragon Knight Cards a Million deck. I actually have one based around Gyrus, if people know the card. Right General Gyrus. It's a kind of a bit of a odd deck because it's all about moving cards into your soul, which is very odd for a Narukami deck, and it runs lots 8 stand triggers. It's all about trying to restand to all your units and try and get as many attacks off as possible. So you actually attack with both your rear guards first when it's a Mega Blast deck. It's a very underrated deck, but you get lots of attacks with high pressure. It's very disjointed to play against and to play as, because it's one of those awkward things. It's like playing a Great Nature deck. You've got the power boost. People don't respect it, so you need to try and sort of force them into understanding that just because a deck isn't played all the time doesn't mean it's not strong. Like Tachikaze, it's not played that often, it is still strong. There's lots of decks like that, like Aquaforce. I am a lover of Aquaforce. Aquaforce is all the restanding, all that. They aren't. It's popular, not as popular as others. Bermuda Triangle. That is like my second favourite plan. Maybe either second or third. They're really fun. And a lot of the time, if you find a plan really fun, you usually do better with them. You enjoy it more. You get more out of it. If you enjoy it more, you're going to learn more about that particular type of unit. You'll learn the different tricks, the different things you can do, the different effects that will activate when you do different things. Like the Tachikaze player, which I played against, who, when his cards got retired, he activated their effects to bring them back, because you can do that. I know I'm focusing a lot on this guy because he's really... I didn't realise I was doing it myself. I was abusing certain abilities, but he really opened my eyes to the fact there's abilities which a lot of people don't understand, which can win the other people games because they've taken the time to understand the abilities. And I say this would just be a bit of a rambling, but some of the players, they really understand the game a lot better than others, and the whole understanding of the game is generally more important than having the cards or having the big expensive decks. The big expensive decks don't really hold a flame at all to the people that actually understand the game better. And if you could just generally understand the game better or can play the game better, then you're gonna win over having one of these top end decks. Which is something which I've noticed when playing at my local. I never really use the top end decks. I'm usually trying to do outside the box decks. I'm usually coming up quite near the top of my top almost all the time. I become first, well, top 4 all the time. And with me, there's this guy that uses Tachikaze deck. He uses that deck and several other just decks which you wouldn't expect. It's quite cool, to be honest. Yes, you have the 2 other people that usually top, which usually have the more meta decks, but these people that use the anti-meta decks, I'll classify it as that. The anti-meta decks are actually incredibly strong. They're very underrated. People don't know the limits of them. They become meta decks if they get picked up, if people realise how strong they are and keep on playing them. Generally, they become very strong decks. Then you've got the meta decks, which are they're strong by default. They are played a lot because they are strong. They don't require much understanding, apart from, say, Glendios when it comes out. They don't require much skill. You've got to just know how to play the game. You've just got to play the deck how it should be played. Unlike a lot of meta decks, like, say, a Grand Blue, well, the anti-meta decks, say a Grand Blue, my Garmor deck, or the Tachikazes, they are anti-meta decks. They're decks which aren't played very often. Like, I would go as far as saying that MLB is an anti-meta deck now. And I personally can't wait for Gust Blaster Dragon to come out in English, because when it does, we'll be able to potentially, they might allow the mixed for Shadow Royal with Shadow heavy decks with Royal cards to support them, which will make it incredibly good, because then you could have so many cool things happen, because Royal has some good support for blasters, Shadow has some good support for blasters. We'd be able to combine them and get a really strong anti-meta deck from it, because it's not, they were never, the blaster chain after MLB was never very big in, apart from the Phantom Blaster Overlord, that's more Shadow Paladin. The blaster cards were never very popular in Japan. But I want to try and get the Gust Blaster Dragon going. When it comes out in English, I want to try and get that deck really rolling, because you can do quite well, because you got Blaster Dark Revenger, Blaster Dark Spirit as well. You got a good variety of blasters we have from grade 3. Then we can have Blaster Javelin for grade 1. So lots of cool stuff. I think I should probably stop rambling by now. Yeah, I'll do another video later, try and sum up some more stuff, but it's just me trying to say some stuff about what's happened at our locals recently, about how the outer meta decks are really starting to take over, and I'm really hoping this happens at regionals, because if it doesn't, I'm gonna be quite sad, to be honest, because the anti-meta decks are a lot more fun. People just play to win. They don't really enjoy the game as much as everybody else. They enjoy the idea of winning, and that's not the game. That's not fun. Alright, so about boring you guys. I guess that's the end of my video. I'm Towan. I've talked about card fight. I'll see you later.